Hi, welcome to the National Critics' Choice Online News, and today we have a very special guest with us. He's none other than Mr. Madanmohan Rao, and he just launched his new book called The African Proverbs, and it's going to be available at all leading bookstores and as well as Amazon.com, Barnes and Nobles, and at your nearest bookstore at your hometown. Now, if you don't have a copy or you can't find a copy, please place an order with your bookstore and tell them that it's African Proverbs, compiled by Madanmohan Rao. Now, Mr. Rao, thank you for joining us here at the National Critics' Choice. It's been really a long journey for you to compile this wonderful book of Proverbs, especially its African Proverbs. Tell us, what's the inspiration behind, and how do you go about putting all these together?
It actually began in my childhood years back in school in India. We had this annual project in school called the scrapbook. At the end of each year, we had to put together a book where you collect leaves from your garden, insects, poems, whatever, and put them together in a book. So I used to collect quotations from Gandhi and John F. Kennedy, all that stuff, and also proverbs from different parts of the world. So over the years, I began to gather more and more proverbs. I've traveled a lot in Africa, Europe, Asia. So I began to gather African proverbs also over the years. So I launched this thing called the World of Proverbs project way back in 2010, about 4 years back. And the first book which came out and was launched here in Singapore was Indian Proverbs. And after that, this year, we have African Proverbs and Singapore Proverbs, Southeast Asian Proverbs. So the African Proverbs book was born about, say, 4 years back, when I began to travel a lot in Kenya, Uganda, South Africa, Ethiopia. And I began to collect proverbs and tell people I'm doing a Proverbs project. People would email me proverbs, share proverbs from their families, their colleagues, their workplaces, etc. Also from the internet and from other books.
Now, what kind of challenges do you face when you try to compile all these proverbs, especially from Africa? Was there a financial issue because you had to travel? You actually made a trip to Africa. So how much does it cost to do all that?
Yeah, it costs quite a bit, but luckily I overlapped this with other work trips. I also happen to be a consultant in IT and digital media. So I used to go quite often for conferences, for music concerts, etc. So on the side, I would tell people, hey, I'm working on this project, etc., etc. But yes, it costs quite a bit because sometimes I would take a week off after work to go and collect all these proverbs, meet people, go for discussions and so on. So the airfare alone to Africa and back, East Africa, West Africa, is about $1,000 in that range, plus the hotel, plus staying, plus traveling, all that stuff. But luckily, thanks to the internet, word of mouth gets around very fast. Through Twitter, through other kinds of social media, you can tell people I'm doing this. If you have some ideas, send me what you have. So for me, the biggest challenge was not so much the money part, but actually the validation part. How do I know this is a correct proverb? So I would share this with other people also, saying, hey, here's my list so far. Do you think I'm on the right track? Are there some mistakes here? But for the most part, people would say, yes, this sounds like a right proverb. Another challenge was translating it from the various languages of Africa, also from regional dialects, etc., into English. So there I had to ask people from Africa. I don't speak, so there's so many languages there. There's Yoruba, there's Kiswahili, there's Zulu. I don't speak any of those languages. So I had to rely on trust of friends I knew, colleagues I knew there, who would say, yes, this is a good translation.
And so how many people does it take to translate the entire project that you have done so far, especially the African proverbs?
Yeah, I had more than 100 people contribute proverbs to this project, and about 10 or 15 books, and also about 10-15 websites from where I got most of the material. So a lot of it is word of mouth from people who said, yeah, my mother used to say this thing as a proverb, etc.
Now, how do you measure and quantify that this proverb is a proverb originated for a country like Africa?
That's a tough one, because some languages are spoken across countries, like Kiswahili is spoken in at least 5-6 countries, if not more, in Eastern Africa alone. So it's hard to say this proverb came from Kenya and not from Uganda. But general agreement was that yes, this is a Swahili proverb, or yes, this is a Zulu proverb. Hard to pinpoint exactly which country it came from, but you can sort of guess which language it came from.
So do you guarantee that this book of Proverbs, the African Proverbs that you produced, is truly African?
Yeah, absolutely. You see the kinds of proverbs they have, you will notice that a lot of the proverbs are about animals. Let me read one or two out for you, and you can see that this is clearly African. A baboon laughs at the buttocks of another baboon, which means don't laugh at other people too much, because you also have faults just like your fellow human being. Here's another one. A fight between grasshoppers is a joy to the crow. When grasshoppers fight, some of them die, and the crow comes and eats them all. So all of these are uniquely coming from the context within Africa, so you can tell these are also Africa. Let me also share one or two from the world of marriage and also on child raising, etc. It takes a whole village to raise a child. This is a Yoruba proverb from Nigeria, and it says to raise a child is not just the mom and dad who raise the child, but the neighbors, the family, and the whole village actually teaches the children different kinds of things.
And Mr. Rao, tell us what will be the three key takeaways from this experience that you have done so far in Africa. You know, were there lessons that you've learned, and also what do you see yourself right now after this experience? Do you think that you have any regrets if you have not done it?
My only regret is I wish I had done this much earlier, and I also wish I had a lot of funding to make this project even bigger than it currently is. I know there are small study groups in different languages looking at proverbs of their language, but we need this on a broader scale across not just Africa but right here in Asia also. I would say my key takeaways are respect for the common man, the common woman. We often tend to respect only experts and gurus and statesmen and all that kind of stuff, but actually the common people, the common folk also have a lot of wisdom, but nobody's put names to these proverbs. So these are just Zulu proverbs, Indian proverbs, Tamil proverbs, Chinese proverbs, but since there's no name attached to who came up with the proverbs, we don't know who they are, and all of this just goes unnoticed. But now these days a very common term is crowdsourcing, the wisdom of the crowd. So proverbs perhaps are the first form of crowdsourcing, crowd contributions to the wisdom of a people. My second takeaway is how common the different cultures of the world are. We all have proverbs about make hay while the sun shines, cut your cloth according to the length of your bed sheet, that kind of stuff. But also how many differences there are. Africa is very different from Asia. Within Asia, Singapore is very different from China and India. Within India, Maharashtra is different from Bengal. So we have differences, but we also have similarities. And that's what Proverbs for me highlight very well. The differences and similarities between human groups all over the world.
What is your favorite proverb from the African proverb?
I love the ones which are about proverbs themselves. I'll give you two about proverbs from Africa. Proverbs are the children of experience. This is from Sierra Leone, which means proverbs are how you distill, how you condense what you've learned from your experiences in life. And here's another one. A proverb is the mirror of the community. The proverb reflects what are the values, attitudes and behaviors of a community. So for me, this is the validation of why proverbs are so important in different languages.
You know, Mr. Rao, it seems that you're so obsessed with proverbs that you've been producing books on proverbs from different cultures and different communities around the world. Why are you doing that?
I think partly because I think the proverbs have a lot of wisdom to share with people. We tend to forget proverbs in a world driven by celebrities, the big MTV shows, tech stars, those kinds of things. And also because today, thanks to social media, you can actually share proverbs very easily. A proverb is as long as an SMS, it's as long as a tweet. So actually maybe proverbs were the first social media of tribal society. It was the way in which people talked to each other through short little bursts of knowledge which you could retweet and share with each other.
Do you think that there's an urgency to preserve proverbs?
Yeah, I think so. I think in many countries, in many societies, people are forgetting some of the languages, they're forgetting the literature contribution of these languages. A good example is even in Southeast Asia, people are forgetting their dialects and looking only at the mainstream languages. So we also have something called the Singapore Proverbs Project. We've contacted with my co-author here in Singapore, Shivali Nayak. We are launching next month a book called Singapore Proverbs, the proverbs of the dialects and the people who live here in Singapore. So that includes the various Chinese dialects, Tamil, Chinese dialects, Malay, and so on and so forth.
How can our viewers contact you for more information? Do you have a website or Facebook?
They can go to worldofproverbs.org. They can just go to amazon.com and search for Proverbs. They can go to the Twitter site SG Proverbs. SG Proverbs is where we tweet proverbs from the dialects and languages of Singapore.
Well, once again, Mr. Rao, thank you for joining us here at the National Critics' Choice. And folks, please do place an order. The African Proverbs are now available at all leading bookstores, even on Amazon.com and Barnes & Nobles.
And in Singapore, also in Select Books on Armenian Street. My distributor in Singapore is Select Books in Armenian Street.
There you go. And so if you're traveling to Singapore, go to Select Books bookstore as well. And once again, I'm Robin Stienberg. Thank you for joining me and have a good week ahead.
Thank you all. Cheers. Welcome to the launch of the book African Proverbs. We're going to begin with a cultural performance. The mic isn't working, but as you can see, this percussion group doesn't need, as you will see, the percussion group doesn't need a mic at all. We're going to hear from Bing, Su, Mel and Man, who are with a group called Funka Fellas, which is Singapore's own djembe group. This is founded by Kelvin Q, who runs a company called Leela Drums in Singapore. And if you've been to the WOMAD and other concerts in the past, you would have noticed drum circles in the audience, run by this very fine troupe. So in fine African style, we'll begin with some nice percussion. Over to our friends Bing, Su, Mel and Man.
That's good.
It's an old song. It came from Northeast Guinea, and the ethnic group is called the Malinke people. It's just a brief introduction to the song. Thank you.
I also asked Bing to say a few words about the djembe and how this group came together, and maybe do some interactive stuff with you guys also. In Africa, nobody sits. It's a different game. But go on, tell us about it.
Yeah, okay. So now just to let everyone know first, right? So we are called Funka Fellas collectively. So there is a very important figure who's not able to make it here today. His name is Kelvin Q. So Kelvin started the group and started Leela Drums Productions to spread the education of traditional West African djembe in drumming and its culture. So what you see here, the drums that we play, they're all traditional instruments with its own culture and its spirit and its values. So this drum here is called the djembe, right? It's goblet shaped, right? It's made of wood, and animal skin is made of goat skin. You can find djembe nowadays as cow skin, there's horse skin, etc. But traditionally it's a goat skin. And what you see here, collectively, they're known as the dunun. So each of them has its name. So the smallest one you see here is called the kenkeni. So naturally it's the smallest. So the sound is the highest. The kenkeni sounds like this. Yeah? So we go by size. Huh? So the second one you see here is called the sangban. Right? It's the mid-tone. And the sangban is interesting because it forms the main. Well, collectively, dunun forms the melody of each song, but sangban is almost like the solo singer. It sings the main motif of each rhythm and the melody itself. And then we've got the biggest one called the dunumba. Right? So each of these drum, right? Again, it's wood, right? Different kinds of wood, but typically you find mango wood used for dunun, and the skin is made of cow skin, right? So now it's how to say, to me sometimes it could be like from a layman point of view, it sounds like, oh, this bunch of guys, they sound very tribal, they're like happily whacking away, you know, having a good time. Well, in its spirit, it's true, as everyone is about, you know, having joy, and djembe doesn't have any boundaries. But more importantly, to make sense of what you guys have heard and maybe are going to experience, is that, like I mentioned, dunun is the main song. So although it sounds, or it looks like, oh, they are the bass drums, and they actually set the tempo. But actually, if you hear them together, just now we played Danadon. So you wouldn't hear that melody in other songs. You'll only hear that for Danadon, and that's Danadon. And then the djembe plays the accompaniment. So we have first djembe accompaniment, second, and so on. And then we'll play a solo. Now, the next song that we will play, and you guys will play together with us, it's called Fangkani. So, no, I think we'll do another one. Let's do Ngoron, okay? Now, relax first, listen to the song, right? Try to feel the groove a little bit, and then somewhere in the middle, I'll guide everyone, and then maybe you can clap along with us with a certain tempo, okay? Now, let's play. Ready?
Maybe I should have had them perform after my session instead of before, because it's very hard to follow them reading out boring text and all that stuff. But you'll hear about this kind of African culture afterwards when I start speaking. But I want to ask them as Asians, how did they get interested in African culture? So let's start with the Eva back. How did you get?
How I get?
And how you?
My name is Helman. Usually in Funkafellas, I will play the Lumba. Okay. How I got interested in West African drumming is I started with a background in classical percussions. Means I played in an orchestra and stuff like that. So, and then as the years go by, I start to look for something more. And then I found Kelvin and the djembe. You got to understand that Kelvin and the djembe comes together as a package. So I found Kelvin and the djembe. So I start to find that it's something different. It's something different than what I'm used to listening. As a person living in a city in a modern world, it's something different, and it makes me see music as a different approach. Back then, when I was younger, I always had this feeling like playing music is always about looking cool, you know. So, and then I found the djembe, and then it's all about teamwork. It's like you as a person does not matter if you cannot blend in and fit in like a community. And from the stories that Kelvin has told me from his trips to Africa and stuff like that, and I can see that it's reflective of how life in the village is, and that to me is the most attractive factor to be playing African music, because we are all humans, city people. Sometimes we can get so full of ourselves, you know, if you know what I'm talking about. So this gives me a chance to take a step back and look at things from a different perspective, and that's why I'm always playing African music for many years now. Yeah.
So.
He basically said it for everyone, I think. Well, for me personally, I've been playing drums since I was in secondary school, so that's what, 13 to 16. And somewhere in between there, I found Kelvin, but he wasn't attached to the djembe yet. Yes, we eventually started our own group playing samba, playing stomp, you know, like those trash percussion and all that. We did a lot of experimentation, and I think Kelvin himself, he wanted to find out more. I mean, he wanted to learn more about so he went to music school, and then when he was in LA to learn music, he came upon, I don't know, okay, somewhere, I'm sorry, I'm actually a bit hazy on this, but eventually when he went into, too long already, I actually started playing with him since '94. So, when he went into African music, I was naturally just following him as, because like we were together as a group, and we wanted to do something for like our generation, you know, what we want to express and all that. So when he went into African, I just played along, and I didn't really think much about it until he started learning the stories, and he started teaching us, you know, the culture, and to understand what this instrument is all about. We're not just playing it in a modern situation because we're Singaporeans, you know, but we have to like at least respect where it comes from, you know. So when he came back and he told us, he actually went to Africa to study, to play the djembe with Grandmaster Mamadi Keita. So when he came back, he told us all the stories and all that, and I got intrigued, I got hooked. Rhythms are rhythms. I mean, I love playing rhythms, I love playing drums, you know, like, it's what I like to do. But this African, this whole African culture, drums, it just strikes something in me. It just calls out to me, and I just wanted to go on learning and playing this. Beat that.
Well, they said it all. But I think for me, the main thing is, in Singapore, for me, where you work every day and you forgot about your own hobbies, your own enjoyment. It's a good way to let out everything by playing the djembe. And slowly, when you play more and more, you started to want to find out more about the traditions or why they play this rhythm or why they play this song. Each has a meaning. It's not just like when we listen to the radio, it's only for enjoyment, or you like this song, so you dance to it. But for them, most of the songs comes with meaning. They play like harvesting or full moon. So we wanted to get to know about more of the song, the meaning. That's how we get trapped into it. Yeah, for me that's it.
Is it written down like music or notes?
It's not. So you asked a very good question, ma'am. So it's passed down from many, many centuries through word of mouth. And it's really like very typical, I describe in a layman fashion. They are really in a tribe, in a village, where you have maybe perhaps not even any technology. So since it's passed down centuries ago, word of mouth, therefore the interesting thing is that the rhythms evolve and sometimes maybe the stories evolve as well. And it's really interesting, like history is not just dead in the books, right? So we all know history is created by man and history evolves as well. In fact, history is very much alive. Through djembe and learning the African culture, I learned that, hey, actually history is very much alive. For example, you have some songs that has, so each song comes with the ethnic group, right, and the purpose, right, why it's played, the story behind it. And you find that the same song, for example, Balakulanjan, is a song that in one region in West Africa, it's about singing about young boys going through circumcision and initiation. But you have the same song Balakulanjan in another part, maybe towards the middle of West Guinea, that is actually not like that. The story is about a couple who wants to have a baby, and they are singing the song to the heron, to the river bird, saying that, you know, baby is better, I'll give you 100 things, but give me my baby. So it's really interesting in that way. So for me, it's, okay, my turn, right, my turn. So for me that's like more on the knowledge part. For me, I love knowledge. But then again, like what they have said, all this together, plus I love the idea that djembe doesn't have any boundaries. So really, like you may think that, yeah, I myself, I've also been playing percussion for many years before I started playing the djembe. But it's really for anyone, because it really brings out the innate sense of primitive rhythm in us. So just a simple example, you go to any place or you're waiting by a roadside, maybe you see someone tapping, or you hear a piece of music. You don't have to be a drummer or a percussionist. When you hear a piece of music that's infectious, you know how to tap to the rhythm and tempo. Maybe some of us offbeat lah, but it's okay. You know, that's one of the very core notion about djembe, that there's no boundary to it. It's all inclusive. So that's what I love. And in fact, now in this modern world, I think this is what we crave for a lot. Because there's so many separation already. There's so many categories, so many definitions. But for djembe, the only definition is where it's from, what's the ethnic group, and what's the title of the song. That's it. Beyond that, okay, we're all the same. We're all equal. So that's why I'm into this. Yeah.
As you mentioned, the founder of the group, Kelvin, is not here. He's actually teaching a workshop in Beijing as we speak today. So I've asked him to send us a little statement to all of you about his band. And we're going to read out a few words from Kelvin himself.
Yes. So...
Give Kelvin's voice.
Wow.
His voice is very low.
Okay, so here goes. Having studied, taught, and performed African drumming for the past decade, I saw how many people had benefited from playing the djembe, an instrument which is more than just the drum to thump on. It wasn't an instrument that just dropped from the sky, my teacher would say. It brings with it many generations of history and cultural values from the mundane culture of West Africa. When learning the intricacies of the traditional rhythms and techniques that were passed down from generation to generation, one experiences a unique connection to centuries-old philosophies and thus learns about who we really are individually and our roles on this planet. African culture has much to offer. Its history and philosophies are probably the most misunderstood around the world due to the years of economic and political instability. If one spends the effort to walk into the culture, you'll see a never-ending resource of wisdom, all interpreted by their creative expression in the form of music, dance, costume, and literature. Like the djembe, African Proverbs brings with it the richness of African culture and its way of life. I always tell my students, through the djembe, you'll learn about yourself. It's true, he always says that. I say to you now, through African Proverbs, you'll discover deeper who you really are. Through learning a culture, we can learn about ourselves. And if you dive deeper, you can begin to see your purpose in life. That's how powerful this can be. For when we experience the crafts of such a culture, we are connected with the thoughts and experience of those who were alive centuries ago. Each day, I understand clearer what my teacher would always say, that the djembe is a universal instrument. It doesn't see your skin color, your wealth, your character, or your background. It's an instrument that anyone can access, and thus discover its priceless value, culminated from centuries of wisdom. Because it is not a journey of learning about African culture, but a journey of learning about humanity and the values of respect and love. I wish every person reading African Proverbs a journey of enlightenment. Thank you. From Calvin Q, djembe performer.
I can't play at all, so don't worry, I'm just going to read some Proverbs now. And thanks.
Thank you.
A round of applause, please, for
Thank you.
I wish Kelvin himself were here. You would see how he's managed to inspire these 4 young people to devote so much of their time into this music and stuff. Yes, question.
Actually, I came a bit late, so it's my fault.
Yeah, but you can pay for an encore.
Play a quick acapella now.
After the end of the show. Okay. Anyway, we have a few other guest speakers for the day. I've asked this lovely young singer in the back, Anda Yoma. She's a French singer who's based in Singapore. And when I asked her to speak, she said, Madan, just because I'm black doesn't mean I'm African. But I asked her to come and speak here anyway. So she's our token African inherited, etc. person at the event. Sorry about that. Anyway, so she will speak a bit later. If you don't know Anda Yoma, she's a jazz singer who lives in Singapore now, and she's recorded about 2 or 3 different albums. I heard her perform here first one day about a couple of years back. We will also hear from another project called the Singapore Proverbs Project. Shivali is the founder of the Singapore Proverbs Project over here, and along with her is Shahira, also a researcher in the Malay Proverbs part of the project. So Proverbs is a big thing of what I do among other things, which is this book, Indian Proverbs, was written about 3 years back, and I launched this over here in the Arts House, and in the audience was Shivali, who said, why don't we do a book on the Proverbs of Southeast Asia from Singapore itself. So that book is coming out next month, right over here, so please come back. But I want to talk a little bit now about this book, the African Proverbs book. This is a book which I launched in Ethiopia 2 months back in Addis Ababa at an IT conference. The other job I have, my day job sort of, is an IT media consultant. So Africa is the next big frontier for IT, just the way Asia was about 20, 30 years back. So currently South Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria are the great big IT frontiers in Africa, which are becoming major centers of excellence. So I've had the good fortune over the years to travel across Africa, also listen to African music, culture, food, all that stuff. So music, food and literature are the best ways to get immersed in a culture. I wish we had African food day, but we don't even have the bar open. I don't know why, but maybe it's because of the health risks from the smoke outside. In case any of you are feeling sick because of the smoke, we have some doctors over here, so don't worry, the aircon is not working and all that stuff. So what I'll do is this, I'll read for you, obviously not the whole book, we'll be here for the whole night otherwise. There's about 2,000 proverbs in the book. But I'll read for you a few selections about why I think African proverbs have a lot to share for all of us. As these musicians mentioned, there are some symbols of Africa which connect across cultures, irrespective of boundary, language, etc. So the music is outstanding, and the djembe, I think, is the most visible, iconic symbol for African culture and music today, just like the tabla for India or the kora as a string instrument in Western Africa, etc. So I'll begin with some proverbs about proverbs from Africa. This one is a Sierra Leonean proverb. Proverbs are the children of experience. So what we learn from our experience, we distill into proverbs. So in a sense, proverbs are like the oldest social media. Proverbs are as long as a tweet, as long as an SMS. So actually I tweet many of these proverbs on the internet. So maybe proverbs were the first way for people to condense their experience, share, retweet with one another, etc. Here's another one. A proverb is to speech what salt is to food. That's an Ethiopian proverb, so it's a very important part of speech and literature. A proverb is the mirror of the community. So proverbs tell you a lot about their culture, that they come from, the language, the food, etc. And indeed, if you look at African proverbs, a huge chunk of them are about animals. So I'm going to read obviously some animal proverbs, and I'll begin with the first proverb in the book. A baboon laughs at the buttocks of another baboon. Okay, and it also means don't laugh too much at other people, because you also are a human being. So you laugh at others, they'll also laugh at you. So what goes around comes around, kind of thing. A clever bird builds its nest with other birds' feathers. Okay, so there's a lot for reverse innovation, that kind of stuff. A fight between grasshoppers is a joy to the crow. So grasshoppers fight, they kill each other, and the crow comes and just catches all of them. A flea can trouble a lion more than a lion can trouble a flea. Kenyan proverb. Okay, so even small guys can create a lot of noise. A grilled locust is better than no soup. Zimbabwean proverb. When you're hungry, eat what there is. And if you go to the streets of Thailand, you can see grilled locusts and all that stuff. A lobster loves water, but not when he's been cooked in it. The view of a lobster is very different. So vegetarians would love this proverb. You know, they said you should not kill things and all that stuff. A man cannot undo his past, just as zebras cannot wipe away their stripes. So some things are immutable in nature, etc. This is a very nice one from South Africa. A man is scared of a lion 3 times. First, when he sees the tracks. Second, when he hears the first roar. And third, face to face. Okay, so then you're really scared of a lion. A person bitten by a snake will also be scared by an old rope. And this is common actually across many proverbs in Asia also. A man bitten by a snake will also be scared of a lizard. There are variations of this in different cultures also. A pig that is used to wallowing in the mud looks for a clean person to rub against. Okay, so if you see a dirty pig, watch out. A termite can do nothing to a stone except to lick it. So termites can bring down the mightiest of wooden poles, houses, all that stuff, except for a stone. There's a very nice one from Nigeria. All lizards lie on their bellies, but nobody knows which lizard suffers from stomach ache. Cannot hang on to the same branch. Okay, so just because he's somebody doing something doesn't mean you also should jump onto the bandwagon. An army of sheep led by a lion can defeat an army of lions led by a sheep. This is used very commonly in leadership statements. I do all this organization development, whatever, corporate consulting stuff, so we use these kind of proverbs very often. An elephant which kills a rat is not a hero. So choose your battles well, choose your enemies well. This one is from Malawi. Anything with scales counts as a fish. It's somewhat like that Mao thing. Any cat is good as long as it catches mice or something, right? Or the quote by Mao. A stupid cow leads her calf near the road. A rat trap catches both the guilty and the innocent. Both of these are from Kenya. By all means, make friends with the dog, but do not give up your stick. So sometimes dogs will not behave properly, so you may need to do some things to catch them. This is another nice one from Ethiopia. Do not catch a leopard by the tail, but if you do, don't let it go. Okay, it's going to come after you otherwise. Do not laugh on the snake. Do not laugh at the snake because it walks on its belly. So don't make fun of people who are trampled, who may look to be trampled, etc., because they actually may be dangerous as well. Do not speak ill of a rhinoceros if there is no tree nearby. Okay, so when you pick a fight with someone, make sure you have some kind of defense. It is better to be a lion for a day than a sheep all your life. That's a very nice one. One muddy buffalo makes the whole herd dirty. Somewhat like the other one about the dirty pig. So these are a whole bunch of proverbs about animals. I'll give you a small sample of them. Then there's some very funny ones about marriage, love, and all this stuff also. Here's one from South Africa. A happy man marries the girls he loves. Sorry, a happy man marries the girl he loves, but a happier man loves the girl he marries. A man that does not lie shall never marry. That can mean various things, of course. A marketplace is not the place for a husband and a wife to argue. Okay, argue at home and not in public or on the mobile phone. There's a very funny one from Somalia. A married couple are neither enemies nor friends. Marriage is like a groundnut. You have to crack it to see what is inside. So you can read all the books you want, you can ask for all the advice you want, but you never know until you actually do the read. You've not been married properly. No, you don't know what marriage is unless you've been married twice. This is a Nigerian proverb which means many things. Do not praise your spouse until a year has passed. Okay, so only after you know the worth of a marriage, etc. If a woman does not love you, she calls you brother. Okay, this has a very strong resonance with Indians who have this Rakhi thing. You know, if a woman doesn't want to be your girlfriend, she'll tie Rakhi on you and make you her brother. So there are some nice similarities here. This one is from Nigeria. Love is better than a whip. Love is better than a whip. So you can imagine what some people think about love. There's a very nice one again from Eastern Africa, from Uganda, I think. A pair of buttocks is like a married couple. There is constant friction between them, but they always stay together. This is something. So, very hilarious, classic African proverbs. Okay. Then there are a whole bunch of ones about parenting, children, etc. This one is a Yoruba proverb from Nigeria. One of my favorite ones. It takes a whole village to raise a child. So it's not just your parents who raise you up, but your uncles, your neighbors, teachers, etc. It takes a whole village to raise a child. If you cannot hold children in your arms, please hold them in your heart. So even if you don't have kids of your own, love kids wherever they are. Friendship reminds us of fathers, love reminds us of mothers. Another nice one for the boys who go out drinking all the time. 100 aunts is not the same as one mother. Okay, so women is okay, but mother is special. Mother is God number 2. This is a Cheba proverb from a tribe in Central Africa. So these are about families, etc. Then there are some about how tribes connect through families and so on. So this one is about tribes and families. A family is like a forest. When you're outside it is dense. Only when you're inside you can see each tree for what value it is. A united family eats from the same plate. So those of you who've been to parts of Africa like Uganda will notice that Ethiopia, etc. Families actually sit around a huge plate and they all eat from the same thing. So in Ethiopia they have this bread called the injera, and you put all the bread on it and you eat the food on it and you eat with your hands. So when you first go there on a business visit or whatever, you will get your own plate, you will sit separately. But if you click with them and they want to do business with you, then you all sit around one big table. Then you know you've cracked the deal, etc. So there are very strong cultural connotations here also. Then these are about the hierarchical nature of society. A diamond's father is coal, yet it regards itself as upper class. Okay, so just because a diamond is a different kind of a stone, it thinks it's better. Borrowing is like a wedding, repaying is like mourning. So when you borrow, you're happy, you celebrate, but ouch, it's like pulling out your teeth when you have to give it back. Then there are some about animals, about plants, etc. This one is about drum beats, which is the djembe thing. Even without drum beats, banana leaves dance. Okay, so you don't always need an instrument to dance. You can dance on your own, etc. This one is something which particularly appeals to people like me. A bald-headed man will not grow hair by getting excited. So whatever happens, there's no chance that I'm going to get anything. And this one is about from fishermen communities. Okay, some of these are from the plains, some are from the jungle. These are from the coasts of Tanzania and Egypt. A boat cannot go forward if everyone rows his own way. A similar one is from Egypt. A boat with 2 captains will sink. So you can have only one leader for a team, etc., etc. This is for those of you who like reading. This is from Morocco. A book is like a garden in the pocket. So you can read, you can have different kinds of things. You must cultivate your interests, etc., etc. Then there were a lot of proverbs about fools. Every culture has the traditional village idiot and the fool and how you learn from the mistakes of fools, etc. So this one is from South Africa. A fool is a wise man's ladder. So people rise on the stupidity of others. A fool looks for dung where the cow never browsed. So if you want to collect dung, know where the cows are, and then you can collect cow dung, etc. as fertilizer, etc. By the time the fool has learned the game, the players have dispersed. A lot of people are saying this about companies like Nokia now for various reasons, but we can talk about that afterwards. A new broom sweeps well, but the old broom knows all the corners. Okay, so technically young people are very good, but older people have the wisdom to know the ins and outs of different kinds of things. This one is from the Igbo group. A person can never run so fast that he can run faster than his backside. Okay, so know your limits of what you can, who you can outpace, etc. A person who carries responsibility also receives blame. This is a tribal saying from Kenya. Then there are some about various vocations. For instance, this one is from Central Africa, from the Congo. A person who sells eggs does not start a fight in the marketplace. Otherwise, all your eggs will be gone, obviously. This one is from Congo again. A priest sees people at their best. A lawyer sees people at the worst. But a doctor sees people as they really are. So you guys love that one. Then there are various takes on God and godness and all the godliness, etc. This is from Zambia. A riddle made by God has no solution. Acts of God are like riddles. And there's a very nice one from Namibia. If you want to give God a good laugh, tell him about your future plans. You may wish for different things, but he will decide what actually happens. Then I have some from various things about nature, environment, preservation, etc. This one is again from Nigeria. Don't urinate in the stream. Your relatives may be drinking from it downstream. Abuses are the result of seeing one another too often. You never abuse strangers. You only abuse people who are your friends, your colleagues, etc. So time often makes you friends and enemies also. This is about some of the food conditions in different parts of Africa. This is from Egypt. After a fast, even an onion is a feast. Abundance does not spread, but famine does. That's a Zulu proverb. This one is from Madagascar in the Malagasy language. Be like the mouth and the hand. When the hand is hurt, the mouth blows on it. When the mouth is hurt, the hand rubs it. So have synergy in your life. This one is about guests, hospitality and things of that sort. Before killing the chicken, carefully observe the character of your guest. Is he worth feeding a chicken, or should you give him just some bread and cheese or something? This is from Zambia. Do not look at a visitor's face, but at his stomach. If he's a very big stomach, he expects to be fed a lot. If he's a very slim person, you can feed him much less. Some African proverbs are very centric to their part of the world, to idiosyncrasies, strengths of their countries. As you all know, Ethiopia is the first place where coffee was found and bread was cultivated as a crop. Coffee and love taste best when hot. That's an Ethiopian proverb. This is from Rwanda. God spends the day elsewhere, but at night he comes to Rwanda. And this is from Egypt. Anyone who drinks from the Nile will always return. So these are very particular to various countries of Africa. There are also metaphors and lessons coming from the animal world, such as do not destroy the entire beehive simply because you've been stung by one bee. So your actions will be proportionate to whatever the intended effect is, etc. There are some other funny ones about the plant world. Eat a mushroom, but do not think about what the mushroom fed on. So don't think about the dirt and the compost and the worms and all that. Just enjoy the mushroom. Some things don't ask how they were created or produced. Just eat what's on your plate. This is again going back to the God thing. God conceals himself from the minds of people, but reveals himself only in the heart. God exercises vengeance in silence. That's from Rwanda. I'll end with a few more now from the Swahili language. Life's caravan never turns back. This is from the gypsies of East Africa, which say that once you have started your life, you can never turn the clock of time back. This is from Morocco. It is not the stomach that eats, but the eye that eats. It's what you see that it creates a demand for how is the food packaged and how it looks and all that stuff. So very often you pay a price depending on how something looks and not how it tastes, etc. This one is something which our friends who played earlier would love, which is if you can walk, you can dance. If you can talk, you can sing. So everyone has some musical skills in them, at least to sing and dance if they want to, etc., etc. And I'll end with this one. This is from the Cameroon. The bigger the head, the bigger the headaches. So the more you have in your head, the more you're going to get in terms of headaches and all that stuff. So these are samples of proverbs from this book of mine, available for a special nominal price of only $15 each. But before we wrap up the evening, I'm going to ask my friends to come up over here on stage, Shivali and Shahira. We also have another book coming out in a month called Singapore Proverbs. So I want to share with you now how proverbs from different parts of the world are similar to what's happening here in Asia, and also how they're different in some other ways. Shivali Naik is a former reporter with CNBC, with CNBC, formerly with Singapore Press Holdings, and she's the co-founder of the Singapore Proverbs Project, and she's going to talk a little bit about some of the proverbs in our next book. And Shahira is our researcher for the Malay part of the book, and she's a teacher and also a member of the Ministry of Education, and she'll talk a little bit about the Malay part of the Proverbs Project. So a round of applause please for Shahira.
Thank you very much. I think you shared such nice proverbs. I don't really know what else to say. Well, I would say that in putting together Singapore Proverbs, there are lots of common themes that I think Madan has mentioned, things like family, business, nature. I find that, Proverbs say a lot in a very few lines, so that's really nice, especially given, this day and age we have such short attention spans. I'm guilty of that. And the thing that is very interesting is I find that it has not caught on platforms like Twitter, Facebook. I don't really see an active group or discussion going on about Proverbs, which is quite a pity. you know, there are lots of movements, or you know, so-called movements on cat pictures and making fun of cute cats. I don't know why people are not sharing funny proverbs, for instance. So when putting together Singapore proverbs, these are some of the observations I had. They're very funny. Definitely, you guys have been enjoying the last few minutes. They're also very insightful. They've made me think about a lot of things that I've never really stopped and thought about until I read these proverbs. They also tackle very sticky topics, like, you know, the relationship between a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law, the relationship between neighbors, people of different ethnic groups, races, things like that. And I think most importantly, they're very timeless. They're proverbs on business that I've read that were probably shared many, many centuries ago. And today I read it and I go, hey, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So I think that's really nice, and that all the more highlights the importance of, you know, preserving them. And I would also say that even though, you know, there's so many proverbs of different, shared by different ethnic groups, different countries, there are common themes. I think going forward we should explore common themes across proverbs from Africa and proverbs from India. Also, I think the gap is that there's so many platforms available. There are mobile apps even that we can probably work on. It's something I want to do, but I just don't have enough time. So hopefully in the future, you know, we will all see some kind of mobile applications available. We'll see greater interest on Wikipedia, Facebook, Twitter, where these proverbs are shared. And yeah, you know, just share all this great advice that's available and free. So, yeah.
Right. My role as a researcher, mainly my interest was academic, of course, as a teacher. So what I found when I was doing that was how much of our heritage is actually in Proverbs. How much of our heritage has actually been lost because of the lack of transmission of these Proverbs to the young. And as an educator and one who deals with the young, this project has actually inspired me to actually do more, move on to something different, perhaps work with Madan and come up with a more youth-oriented proverb series where they can actually use it as a supplement in schools. So that is something in the future. But for me, I think this project is especially very close to my heart because I'm a Singaporean. And this speaks of Chinese, Malay, Indian proverbs, regardless of dialect groups. We all share a common thread, we all share common heritage, and as part of being a citizen of Singapore, I think what I told Madan at the beginning of the project, every household in Singapore should have a copy of this book, because it is what we are about as people. Yeah. So that's it.
Now they will read some sample proverbs from the book. We also have a Twitter account, SG Proverbs. If you're Twitter, you go to SG Proverbs and read a few of them. Some are about Malay proverbs, some are Chinese dialects. So maybe you can
This is how the book will look.
That's the cover designed by a graphic design instructor from NTU. So it has a cup of tea and the flag and various fonts and all that stuff.
So I have picked some of my favorite ones here. A book holds a house of gold. It's a Mandarin proverb. A beautiful vendor can even sell fermented juice. It's a Tamil proverb. A clear conscience is the greatest armor. A day of grief lasts longer than a month of joy. Again, Mandarin proverbs. A husband with a beautiful wife will need another pair of eyes. It's a Tamil proverb. This one also rings true. A cat that jumps into a pot thinks all is darkness. A bird does not sing because he has the answer to something. He sings because he has a song. A Mandarin proverb. Another Mandarin proverb, a dragon will be teased by shrimps when it's in shallow waters. Some more Tamil proverbs. A drunkard's words are gone by the next dawn. A heart that is satisfied is a medicine that will make gold. And the final Mandarin proverb I have is, a day of reading is a day of gain. A day without reading is 10 days of loss. Which is very, very true. So I'll let Sharira read some of the Malay proverbs.
Yeah, actually Madan told me to read more proverbs, but they've just like out of my mind, so I'm using the same samples. Okay, a cup of water poured into the sea will not reduce its saltiness. I think that's very. A boat that has overshot its destination can always turn back. but words uttered without thought cannot be retreated. Another Malay proverb, a duck swimming in water can also die of thirst. Never thought of that. Okay. A diamond is still called a diamond even if it comes from the mouth of a dog. A gift of coconut milk is not repaid with poison. And finally, a deer tied with a rope of gold will still run off into the forest at the first chance of escape. Okay, those are some very profound, very deep, a lot of meanings to them. We should have a discussion about it.
Yeah, at the launch.
Yeah, at the launch.
Would you like to get yes, upstairs. Thanks. So I'll just read a few more African ones, and I'm going to ask Andreyama to come up. So get ready with your speech. Yeah, or maybe you can sing a song also for us. Yeah. Okay. So hope is the pillar of the world. This is a Kanuri proverb of southeastern Africa. This is an Ovambo proverb from northeastern Africa. Hunger is a good cook. So as they often say, if you're hungry, you eat no matter what is prepared, etc. Those of you teachers would love this one. If you educate a man, you educate one individual. If you educate a woman, you educate a whole family. By the way, not all of these proverbs are sort of sentimental, how life used to be, how nice the good old days were. Many of these are very relevant to our day and age, and one of the areas where I consult is in knowledge management, innovation, all that stuff. So here are some proverbs I use to present to the Chief Innovation Officer of companies and whatnot. Knowledge is better than wealth. You have to look after wealth, but knowledge looks after you. Knowledge is not necessarily wisdom. Okay, there's another flip side of the other one, which goes somewhat like a little learning is a dangerous thing. So just because you know some things, you think you know everything, etc. So knowledge is not the same as wisdom. This is a beautiful one from Uganda. Never underestimate the power of stupid people in large numbers. This is all about mob violence, mob fury, and that kind of stuff. This is a very nice one from Kenya. 9 is nearly 10. So you're almost there. If you get a 9, you're almost over there. Very nice one. Then this is from Yoruba, the Yoruba language. No God is more demanding than your stomach. It demands a sacrifice every day. So every day when you eat a chicken or beef or whatever, you've killed somebody. It's a sacrifice for your stomach. This again goes back to knowledge management. This is a Nigerian proverb. Not to know is bad. Not to wish to know is even worse. So you should have the curiosity to want to learn. Don't sit on your laurels. Keep moving on in life, etc. This is from Tunisia. 100 alcoholics are better than one gambler. So that one gambler can ruin your whole village, your whole fortune, etc. And I want to end with this very nice one, which you will see in the Johannesburg airport. If you ever go to Johannesburg, as soon as you land, there's a huge banner with this African proverb. If you want to walk fast, walk alone. If you want to walk far, walk with others. So if you go solo in life, you can go extremely fast, no baggage, none of that stuff. But if you want to go really far in life, you need companionship, support, medical aid, all those kinds of things. I'll stop at that part and we'll end again with how we began, with music. I'm going to ask Andreyama to please come up on stage, as you promised, by the way, when I met you last time. Yeah. Andreyama is a jazz singer from France who lives currently in Singapore, and she sings zouk music from Martinique, along with jazz and chanson and various other kinds. You must buy her albums. Do you have CDs in the back of yours? No. Okay. No. Andreyama.
Thank you, darling.
Thank you. This is Andreyama.
Hi. I never promised him that I would be singing, but I can sing one song for you in Creole. While I was listening to you, it's true. Being black doesn't mean you are African. And but when I was listening to some of your proverbs and reading some of them, when you were talking about the boat in Egypt, you cannot have two captains. And in my Creole proverbs, they will say, 2 crabs cannot live in one same hole. And it's very similar. And there's another proverb, but you are talking about eyes, and I can't remember. And it reminds me, my grandmother who told me, touch with your eyes and look with your hands. So it reminds me a lot of things, which is quite interesting. As I say, being a black girl doesn't mean I'm African. I have African ancestor. But there are a lot of things which are common values. Even though in Africa, yes, with the economic problems, people tend to forget about those kind of value and deep, profound values. So I will sing a song for you in Creole, okay, which you must know that Creole is a language of oppression, a language for African people to live together, because African slaves would come from different parts of Africa, and they will need to have a common language, and that's the language I will sing to you. And the song is Caressez-moi. It's caress me, which the meaning of the songs. She's telling her lover to caress her so she can forget about the hardships of life. Soleil la ka couché, la l'élan ka levé, cocotier ka bougé, caressez-moi, caressez-moi. La nuit la ka tombé, tombé, tes oiseaux ka posé, serpent maudit chanté, caressez-moi, caressez-moi, dans ma la ka gémi, la laine la ka frémi, cocotier ka parlé, caressez-moi, caressez-moi, ti maman ka plairé, non la fatigué, ouais. Sans you tout qu'à couler, caressez-moi, caressez-moi. Oh. I think it's my husband calling me.
He heard you sing it.
Thank you very much.
Halfway through or something?
Yeah, but without a band, come on.
With the band, this sounds fantastic. This,
Yeah.
Which album was that which came out of yours, which you launched over here?
Caressez-moi, it's a cover, and the one which I wrote, Ne t'ai qu'à vibrer, is also in Creole. And in fact, while I was writing this song, Ne t'ai qu'à vibrer, it was a kind of answer to Caressez-moi. And Ne t'ai qu'à vibrer, it's between a couple, and she would tell her husband, it was so good, we were so good together, what happened? Okay, it's just an extract of the songs I'm singing. Mon pas te savait nous t'es maléré, mon pas te pouvait ouais ou t'es qu'à crier, la vie a été douce, roule le chalot, ron cadonov, t'o fait mon hari, mon pas comprendre. Ne t'ai qu'à vibrer, ça qui t'est fait, pas qu'à défaite, mon cas rêvé toqué viré. Soleil, j'allais en nous aller, pour que ça te disparaisse. En mon travail, ça qu'a marché. Mon pas tout seul, mon gain ami, que tout le monde a rêvé, même c'est la peine qu'à manger mot. Mon pas te savait où t'es maléré, mon pas te pouvait où t'es caléré. Un petit café, des trois petits bouts, pas oublier mot. Mo contento, mo pas comprendre, nous t'es qu'à vibrer, vibrer.
So, we come to the end of the evening. I must thank the Djembe group, Andayoma, Shivali, Shahira, and most importantly all of you, because now you're going to help a struggling author and buy many copies of my book for the trivial sum of $50. I'll be very happy to sign them for you. Thanks for coming, and please come again on July 20th for the launch of our other book, Singapore Proverbs.